Hey everyone, this is the Disjunct Diary, and this episode is for November 20th, 2019. So I've been preparing this last week and probably going to be preparing for the next one also, just cleaning around the house and things like that to prepare for Thanksgiving. Lauren's sister's going to be visiting along with her husband and daughter, and I've never met them before, so I'm hoping to be able to make a good impression. Just clearing out everything. We're going to try to buy some kind of table. We've been looking through thrift stores and probably going to be messaging somebody on Facebook to see, because, the marketplace thing that they have on there. Saw this cool table and just want to, have a good place for everybody to be able to sit down and eat. I'm going to try to make some pozole. It's going to be my first time ever trying to make it. For those who don't know, it's like a soup. It's like a Mexican dish. It has hominy in it. The broth or the liquid or whatever you want to call it inside the soup is like chile. Along with the chicken broth. I plan on making it with chicken. Other people use different types of meat, but I want to stick to chicken because that's what I grew up eating. And I don't know if anybody has ever had it, whether it's Lauren or whether it's her sister or the rest of her family, but I'm hoping to try to make a good first impression of it. My mom always made that during the holidays, and since I'm not going to be able to go over and visit them for this Thanksgiving, it'll be cool to have something a little bit more like home when it's time to celebrate Thanksgiving. I'm pretty sure we're going to get some other things too, some more, traditional Thanksgiving stuff, just in case, because her daughter's little, and just in case I make it too spicy, I don't want her to either force herself or to have to go without eating something, along with the rest of us. So I want to try to make some other things too. I'm not sure yet what those things will be. I remember Lauren made a list of it, but I forgot. I need to check on it again. But this podcast has a little bit of an upgrade. Now, I'm no longer using a notebook, a regular notebook that is, for my notes here. You can't hear any page rustling even though I'm moving this thing because Lauren lent me an old iPad that she had laying around. And I really like this. I have notes that I use, on my regular phone for lyrics and things like that. Because usually I'll bounce them back and forth between the notepad on my phone and a regular notepad. But I'm starting to find it a little bit more tedious to be writing it down. It's not that easy to go back and make corrections. You have to either cross things out or erase them, and then you start using page by page for just nothing but scribbles, and it kind of gets disorganized and out of hand. And having this iPad to be able to use this for notes, for lyric notes and other types of notes for like the podcast and things like that, it helps to make everything a little bit less crowded in a way. Not to mention, I like to listen to other podcasts, Joe Rogan podcast and the Bill Burr podcast, and just music and things like that while I'm doing these notes, just for like an inspiration about different subjects and topics and things like that. So it helps, because it's like I hear something cool and I get inspired to write a line. Then I have to exit out of there, stop the video, and then go over to the other app to do the notepad stuff, write it down. And just the back and forth gets really annoying. So this is pretty cool. Thank you, Lauren. Yeah. It's pretty much what this last week has been about. Just preparing for Thanksgiving and stuff, and about a blender. But, just thinking about, the way that I celebrate the holidays back with my parents and things like that. The posadas, close to December, things like that. Makes me miss, Mexico, Fontana as well. Just being close, to people that are, the same type of culture and things like that. Because, there's not too many Latinos out here or anything like that, so I don't really see very much of the stuff that I'm used to. So this is kind of a new experience. But I just been missing some things about Fontana, even stuff that doesn't have to do with the holidays necessarily. I miss some of the little things, like going to the swap meet on the weekend with my family. Hell, for a time, my mom used to sell some clothes at the swap meet. I used to go with her. Me and my sister used to go with her every Saturday, and we'd get there like at 4 in the morning, unpack everything out of the van that we had at that time, and used to like put up the little tent and everything, lay everything out real nice, just be there for hours and hours until the end of that day, which was like at 3 p.m., 4 p.m., maybe even 5, I forget. But I don't know, it's like a nostalgia type of thing. At that time, I got really bored easily, just having to sit in the van or right there in the tent. But sometimes I would like sneak away for a little bit and go look at the other stuff that people were selling. A lot of bootleg stuff or a lot of used things, but it was pretty cool and I miss it. It's just part of the experience of, I guess, being there. Miss a lot of the food places there too. I have a thing for burgers, and there's this one place that's in there in Fontana. It had got shut down for a little while. I'm not sure why. They closed it, and then they reopened it again, maybe about a year later, just before I left. It was called Mr. J's. It was down Foothill, near Citrus, somewhere between Citrus and Sierra. I forget the streets, maybe Cypress or something like that. Foothill and Cypress, I think. Anyway, it was a cool place. I used to go there after school sometimes with my friend, from one of my friends from high school, Oscar. I used to go over to his place. He lived in some apartments not too far from there, and we just go into his room and watch like Let's Plays or things like that and just laugh our ass off the whole day, like from like 2 p.m. until like 8 or 9. And we used to take like a small like intermission and just walk down over there and get like, a couple meals or whatever, just eat there, walk back and just keep watching stuff. At the end of the day, 8 or 9 p.m., I just walk back over to my house because it's maybe like, I don't know, a little less than a mile away from him. So, just those little things, I miss that a lot. Even riding the bus. I used to ride the bus a lot out there. I have a license, but I don't really drive. Even had a car that was just sitting there in the front for a while at my parents' house just because I didn't really like to do it. But it was cool. I liked walking around there a lot. Stuff like that, just spacing out. And, yeah. I don't know, I guess that's about, as much of the stuff that I've had in my mind lately. I don't know if that came out right. That's a lot of the stuff that I've been thinking about lately. But, since I've run out of things to talk about, stuff that's been on my mind, I can answer some questions that people have been asking this last week. Daniel from Vinterfall was actually interested about how I met Lauren. And I met her a little over a year ago. We were on tour. I think it was late July through to August. And we were on tour with Wino from St. Vitus and the Obsessed. And that was my favorite tour. I loved hanging out with Wino and Brian. It was really cool to get to know them. And we had a date in Seattle in late August, maybe mid-August. I forget the date exactly. Lauren knows it. I'm bad with that type of thing. But, yeah, like we played at the Highline on Broadway in Seattle. And we were up first. And after we played, my kind of ritual every night, by that time, because it was getting close to the end of the tour. By that time, it was pretty much like, we would finish playing. I would put away my stuff real quick, go over and ask Nate, because he was helping us with the merch for that tour. And I would go over and ask him, what his opinion was about the set that we had just played, whether we did okay or whether we were fucking up a lot or something. And so while we were up on stage, actually, I should add, the reason that I had some kind of like recognition a little bit at first was because there's this friend of Lauren's. His name's Adam. Real cool dude. And I had seen him around on like Instagram because, we both followed each other on there. He's since kind of gone off of all the social media stuff, but hey Adam, if you hear this, because sometimes he goes on to YouTube or things like that to like look at stuff. But anyway, I recognized him. He was over on the side on, I think, while you're looking from the stage outwards towards the crowd, he was to the left of me, all the way to the left to the wall, and with him was this girl. And it's like I noticed him, and I recognized him mostly because, I had seen his face on Instagram plenty of times, so I was like, hey, there's that guy. So, we finished playing. I go over, ask Nate, like, how we did, blah, blah, blah. I don't remember. But then I went back over to the front of the stage to catch Wino's set. And being up on stage, it could get a little bit difficult for me sometimes because I've had back problems since I was a kid. If I stand idle for too long, standing, sitting, doesn't really matter. Even laying down, like my back will just start hurting, and it's not really a spine problem, it's a muscle problem. I don't know how to fix it. My posture sucks. The whole nine. But, my back was hurting after we played, so I sat down on the floor because there were no chairs. There were like some booths, like small 1-person, 2-people booths on either side, but they were all pretty much taken up by the rest of the crowd. So I just, right front and center of the stage, I just sat down and was just looking up the whole time, just watching Wino play. And maybe a few songs in, Lauren came over and sat right next to me. And, she asked me like, hey, can I sit down here and watch this with you? And I was like, sure, I didn't mind. Like I recognized her because when I had looked over and recognized Adam, I saw her right next to him. And at first I was, I was wondering like, oh, is she with him or something? I wasn't sure. But yeah, it's like she kind of told me a little bit about herself. I think she sat down just before Wino was playing, so we had a little bit of time to talk, and she told me, that she was visiting, that she was from North Dakota. And, I thought, like, hey, that's pretty cool. So, I think I told her, like, hey, that's pretty awesome. I'm like, thanks, that you made it all the way out here, because she told me that, she hadn't heard of either Wino or Six Organs of Admittance, because that was the first show that Ben from Six Organs had come out to play with us with. Anyway, so she went over there because Adam had, like, shown her, the music that we were doing, the acoustic stuff that we were doing. She didn't really know about the black metal stuff very much, I think. I mean, I've shown her some stuff since, but she didn't really know about the black metal stuff. It's not really her thing, the black metal stuff. So she got into this stuff because of the acoustic half of the Zaster story. And she had a Subject to Change. And yeah, she sat down next to me, and she just kind of got close to me, and yeah, she went over to the bar, and I didn't know she had a few drinks in her already, and when she went back over there, she must have gotten a couple more in her, because when she came back, she was pretty drunk. And I could tell, I could pick up on it pretty quick, just being around all the bars and stuff like that. And I don't drink myself. I've never really drank, maybe I've had like one sip of something, every now and again, like maybe once every 3 years, I'll take like just the tiniest little sip, like a drop, and that's it. It's not really my thing. I don't really like the taste of it, but I can tell, and when she came back, we stayed sitting down and watched until, Wino had stopped playing. Then Ben came on, and he stopped playing. In the middle of Six Organ set, I believe Adam came up to her and told her that he was going to head out. And I looked, I was like thinking to myself, like, oh, I hope she has a way to get back, because she had told me that she was staying over at his place for the weekend while she was visiting. Because, I wasn't about to try to do anything, she had just drank, and, it just, that's not my thing, At the end of all that, everybody started leaving that area where the stage was at, and we got up, and when she got up, she was already kind of stumbling around and stuff, and, we talked a while more, and I told her, about some of the music that I like to listen to. One of the first names I threw out there was Kendrick, and she seemed surprised about that. I don't know how surprising that is for anybody listening, but, my favorite, for quite a while now. But anyway, it was getting pretty late, we were trying to put all her stuff away, and it's not like I was annoyed and wanted her to leave or anything like that. Not at all, she was, she looked really good, and, she was really nice. It's just, when you're on tour, you're on a bit of a schedule. Everybody kind of, not everybody, but people that don't know much about the touring type of life or haven't been around that many bands during that time, they, like people at jobs that I've been to and stuff like that, whenever I mention that I tour, they always have like the misconception that, going on tour means that, you pick up on girls and things like that, and it's like the whole Motley Crue, drugs, sex, and rock and roll in the tour bus type thing, and it's not like that at all. It's like you get to a place, you play the show, you pack all your stuff up, you get in the van, and you drive, for another 3-4 hours until it's like 2 or 3 in the morning, and you guys are all exhausted, and because you gotta go like 500 miles to the next gig and things like that. So it's, there's just, even if you wanted to, there's no time to do anything like that. And it's not like, that's not really my thing, so I don't do that anyways. But, we were in a rush to leave, because we gotta go from, it was already like 1 a.m. or something like that. And we had to go from Seattle all the way over to Eugene. Was it Eugene? I don't know. Yeah, I think it was Eugene, because maybe we skipped Portland. I forget. I'm not necessarily sure. I forget the scheduling. Off the top of my head, it's fucking impossible. But, we were kind of in a hurry to leave, and I was kind of like trying to tell her, like, hey, like, how are you going to get home? How are you going to get over to your friend's house? Like, we got to get going kind of soon. And she kind of, she started walking off, into the night. And I had to run over and pull her back over to the venue, because, she had told me that she wasn't from there. She was from a way smaller town. She was drunk and stuff like that. And I didn't want her to get, assaulted or anything like that, trying to just wander the streets. Because from what she had told me, Adam lived really far away from the venue. So I had her unlock her phone for me, and then I went over and messaged him, and asked him if he was going to be able to come over and pick her back up. So, we waited there, and he eventually came over and got her. And he apologized and stuff like that. And, it wasn't a big deal, Um, but yeah, that was kind of like the end of that night. We drove, and, if it had been the whole Motley Crue type of situation, there wouldn't have been a chance to do anything regardless. We drove, kind of far out from the city, and we couldn't find a hotel. Brian from Wino's camp had, he was really on the ball when it came to, he drove, I think, for them almost the whole time, the whole tour. And Scott does the same thing, and, I gotta learn to drive. I need to help him out with that type of shit. But anyway, Brian, he also helped book all their rooms in advance every night. He had a kayak, and he would do it all. And because, Scott had cash, he didn't really have anything in his bank account to put towards the hotel, so we didn't really have, that luxury while on the road that time around. And because of that, we would get to a city that he told us he was going to go to, and we'd get there, and there'd be, no rooms sometimes. Or it would just be kind of pricey. Anyway, that time, there were no rooms in any of the hotels that were in that area. So, Brian, Wino, and Wino's girl, they let us stay there, inside their room, and Scott and I slept on the floor, and I think Nate and Rachel, they slept in the van. And yeah, so, those circumstances were not ideal for that type of thing to happen anyways. So I'm glad it never even got to that point, because that would have been really freaking embarrassing. But, after the day after, when I got up, I was still thinking about Lauren. And I messaged Adam and asked him if she could message me, because I wanted to talk to her, I wasn't sure, if me, kind of having to, push her away to an extent had hurt her feelings or anything like that. And I wanted to kind of clear that up and just be like, hey, I hope there's no hard feelings. This is just kind of the situation. And, on a side note, it turns out that, I didn't get a message from Lauren for quite a while later in that day. Because it turns out she had actually left her phone at the bar. She had lost it at the bar. And, I guess the next day they went over there and it had been closed. It was closed until, I think, later on in the day. And they had to wait there until they opened it up, and luckily her phone was there. And, she messaged me later on that day, and we just continued to talk, and that October, maybe, I guess it was a couple months after the tour, she went over to visit me in California. We rented a spot up in near Big Bear, Lake Arrowhead area. And, we got along really well. And then a few months after that, we decided, hey, we got along really well. We both were able to live, for a week, together, and everything seemed pretty good. So why don't we try to, just move in and see what happens? And as of yesterday, 10 months later, since I moved here to North Dakota, we're doing great. I think so. And I love her very much. So, yeah, that's pretty much the story about how we met, And it's been great. It's been a great over a year, because I can't do the math off the top of my head. I suck at math, you guys. I really fucking suck at it. But, anyways. Let's see. Dan also asked me about how I got into Nick Drake. And for those that don't know, Nick Drake is a folk singer and acoustic guitar player. That he did maybe 3 albums, then a handful of other recordings that they later turned into compilations. He he was from around the 60s, 70s era, and he died really young. He died at 26, I believe, from an accidental overdose of something. Don't know exactly what. Um, I love his music. He's one of the most influential guitarists to me because, his skill, his finger picking skill was amazing. If you guys want to listen to some really good folk music, it's like serious. It's kind of like, it's pretty sad, and it's kind of like this middle ground type of thing with the feeling of the stuff that he does. It's like happy, but it makes you sad at the same time. It's like a bittersweet kind of emotion when you hear his music. Songs like Northern Sky, Riverman, things like that. Like, those songs are really, really important to me as a songwriter. And that's the type of thing that I always try to do, both lyrically and just writing, like, the music itself. I want it to sound happy but sad at the same time. It's kind of hard to describe it. And as a side note, another guitar player that's really important to my style is Johnny Marr from the Smiths, because he has that same sort of thing going on with his playing, and it's very intricate and stuff like that, and I really love both of those styles. But anyway, Nick Drake. I actually got into Nick Drake through metal. Back in my first year of college, I got really into, like, the doom metal stuff, or like the really droney type of stuff. And one of the bands that I had really gotten into was Boris. And they have this one album called I'm not a Japanese speaker. Something like Akuma no Uta or something like that. Anyway, the album cover is this blue album cover where the guitar player is sitting on a chair and he has his double neck guitar / bass, on his lap, like in playing position, and then he has his shoes like right next to his feet, like he's not wearing them. They're off and they're right next to his feet. And I looked, I was really into that album. I still think it's an amazing album, actually. It has some really rockin' tracks on it. If you haven't heard it, I would really recommend it. Boris, Akumanouta. Anyway, I was really interested in the album, so I tried to look up some details on it, and I read that the cover was inspired by the cover of a Nick Drake album called Brighter Later. So I looked up that album, and I instantly just fell in love with that music, and that was about 5 years ago, and it was just around the time when I was getting into doing my own acoustic fingerpicking type of music. So he was really important to my development in that type of style. And ever since then, I've really loved his music. Truthfully, I haven't listened to his stuff a whole lot in a while, but I really want to get back into listening to it because it's so important to me, and it just brings me to a special, different place, than a lot of other stuff. And yeah, that's how I got into Nick Drake. It's not a really big or flashy story, but yeah, Dan was curious, so just, that's how I did it. And somebody else asked me about the t-shirt design that I did for my shirt, my Never Forgiven shirt that I have. So I've been also doing the shirt designs for Zaster, I think from 2016, around the release of Subject to Change, until now. I've done pretty much all of them. I'm not really good at drawing, but sometimes, like I'll find things online, things that are usable and not infringing copyright or anything like that, and I'll go over and edit them and kind of change them up into my own thing, and then use that for the t-shirt designs. The stuff that I used for this shirt of mine are 2 different images. The top thing, the top monster thing, and then the bottom decaying corpse thing on a bed. Those are two different images that I kind of compiled together, and they both look like they fit each other because they're from the same artist. I think back in like the late 1800s or something like that. He did those drawings for like an Edgar Allan Poe book. I don't remember which stories are supposed to be for either one of those, but they really intrigued me. And it's supposed to be a representation of the little text that I have on it that says their apathy is death. For those who don't know, that's some lyrics that I have for a song on my song Exit to Exist, which is a reference. It's about to get really fucking nerdy here. One of my favorite games of all time is Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. I mentioned before that I had and have, technically still, an original Xbox. And that game was one of my favorites, and it's very influential also in a lot of the ways that I think to this day. And I had always heard that there was a second one. Then I hadn't played it until maybe the last few years. One of my sister's friends let me borrow it. Actually, yeah, 2 copies. Let me keep one of them. And there's a line in it because that game has also kind of become influential to me, and I love it just as much. They're both great games. If you haven't played them and you have the means to, I really suggest that you play them because they're fucking awesome. They're like an RPG type of style. Anyway, there's a line in it where one of the people in the game, it's like you're faced with a choice of having to choose between 2 of your friends in your party because they're both starting to kind of fight with each other. I don't want to give too much of the story away, so I'm kind of half-assedly describing the situation. But they're about to start fighting, and they tell you to choose a side. And if you choose the option to pick neither of them, one of them will give you a lecture and tell you that, to kind of quote it a little bit, maybe halfway quote it. Like, they say, if you do nothing, if you do no actions, you're about as useless. Like, it's something like, the only thing that you have use for is feeding the insects, basically, because apathy equals the death of you because you're not taking any kind of action and you're not standing up for anything. So that type of thing, kind of stuck with me. And, they actually say the words apathy is death. And I figured, that phrase in particular stuck with me because I feel like that relates to my life in a lot of ways. I've been through those times in my life when I felt like I didn't want to do anything. What's the point? I've struggled with depression for many years. And, I took that kind of thing to heart. And, I wanted to use that for a song. So I wrote it into that. And I've had the song written for many years. I just wanted to get I've had a lot of the material that I'm recording for this Fontana album for years as well. But I've been trying to perfect as much as I can up until now. My producing, mixing, just everything that has to do with how good the album will sound. Because I like the Concrete Earth songs, but the recordings, they sound pretty freaking rough. And I wanted to improve upon that so that the next time I come around, people can see that there's a huge improvement from there to now and a growth as an artist. So, I kept and held on to that song for many years. And it seems, because of the timeline of it all, that I took the shirt and, I had the shirt first before I had the song, but it's the other way around. Oops, sorry. I hit the microphone. I talk with my hands a lot. But yeah, that's basically, how that shirt came about. And it's kind of like a representation of, somebody not doing anything and kind of rotting into their bed. And then, apathy as a word is kind of personified by that monster overarching the bed, kind of about to swallow the person up and take them, into kind of like the abyss or something like that. From here on, I want to try to come up with some different kinds of things for the t-shirt designs. Lauren drew this really cool thing that I might use, if I can get like a good way of scanning it or something. And then, with my newly, hobby every now and again of trying to create fonts, I can do something a little bit more original. But, that's all stuff that's in development. I don't know yet what to do, with pressing CDs or shirts or vinyl or anything. Like my money situation is a little bit limited. We've been trying to save up like crazy to move back to California. So I have to be kind of smart, with the money when it comes to the music stuff. And not entirely sure yet. First, the songs, then I can come up with what to do later on after that. Now, I want to be able to get all this stuff done, though, before we leave here. But I don't know. We'll see. Let's see. I think Lauren actually sent me a couple of suggestions, so let me take a look real quick on that. I hate that this chair squeaks. Sometimes I have to restart guitar recordings, because I mic them. I mic my guitar when I record it, and sometimes I'll move slightly and it'll creak. Anyway. She asked me, one of the questions is, what are some of my best shows and my worst shows that I've played ever? Okay, I'll start off with the best show. The best show that I've ever played, I believe, was in Madison, Wisconsin. The turnout was okay. It wasn't a ton of people, but I don't know if it was the room, the venue itself, or, I don't know what it was. I think maybe the guy was just really good. Like, he probably had mic'd bands with acoustic guitars before, because one thing that it kind of seemed to be correlating throughout some of these tours is that the guys, the sound guys that are working like in these mostly metal kind of venues, they usually don't come across too many acoustic bands, so we usually have to kind of help them out, with setting everything up. And, it's gotten better because we've gotten a little bit more used to how to do it. But, at that time, we didn't really know too well, I don't think. We were still learning, how to kind of operate as a live band. This was back in 2017, and we were playing in Madison. I forget the name of the place, and that guy just had it so freaking good. I don't know if there's any real footage of it, but it's a shame because we played really good. I could hear everything perfectly, and everything just felt like it was really on point that night. And I think that's the best show that we've done. There's been a lot of other ones where the sound was fantastic also, but I don't know, maybe it was because that was the first time in a gap of like a lot of venues that, while not terrible, I would have changed a thing here or there, so that one kind of stands out to me the most. And as far as a bad show, I feel like there's several contestants. I think maybe the worst one is the last time that we played in Santa Cruz. I'm not going to say names of venues or anything like that, but, we played in Santa Cruz once. I think also in 2017, it was the last show of the tour, and we played last. There were a couple other groups that went up on stage, and, we went up there. We were playing some songs. We might have been a few of them in. At that time, because we were playing last, headlining most of that tour, we would play for about an hour or so. and like some other lady and guy from one of the other bands, I guess they started drinking, and they were sitting, like a little bit further, maybe towards the back of the venue hall, and they were just talking at like the top of their voice, no inhibitions or whatever. And Scott got mad and he asked them to shut up, and then I did the same, and then they just started screaming like fuck you, like all this other shit. So we were like, you know what, fuck it, it's the last show of the tour, nobody's really giving a shit anyways, not that many people showed up, these guys won't stop talking, that's it, we're cutting it short. I think we might have played one more, and then we were like, yeah, alright, thanks. We might have played like 40 minutes, maybe, we were like definitely like a good 4 or 5 songs short of what we had planned. But it's like that lady just wouldn't stop talking shit as we were packing up our stuff. And I kind of have some anger issues sometimes, and I was just white knuckling it the entire night after that. I was fucking pissed, man. But I guess another show, that we had was that was kind of, it's not even a Zaster show. This was before I was in there, when I was in high school and I was in other bands. Which I haven't really touched upon. I had some, a couple bands, and it was a couple bands because we changed the name as we went along and had lineup changes, but it was always kind of like that same band that started out just changing continually throughout a couple years. We had some really bad names. We started out with, we were just taking song titles from other bands, and we were just using that as our names. There was a title by Children of Bodom, whatever they're called, because I'm not really a fan of theirs, but some of the other guys in the band were. So the first iteration of this band was called Roadkill Morning, like sad morning, not like daytime morning. And regardless, it's still a really bad name. But then after that, I think we called ourselves Dead by Dawn, in reference to, both, the Deicide song and the Evil Dead franchise. Because I'm into horror movies. I like them a lot, and we were kind of getting a little bit heavier, going towards the death metal side. And then we had a phase after that, we were starting to go a little bit more black metal, but keeping some of the death metal thing after that. And then I believe it's a Black Dahlia Murder song. We called it Christ Deformed. And, that was the last iteration of the band. It's another pretty bad name. We booked a show out in LA. It was the first show I ever played in LA. And we were playing at this place called Siete Elefantes. 7 Elephants. And I couldn't find any images of it or anything like that. It was like in the middle of South Central or some shit like that. And my dad, helped us out. We packed all of our stuff in the van. Just a 2-seater van. So, some of the other guys in the group, I forget who, sat in the front with my dad. And then the rest of us, the other 2 guys, we sat, me and, I don't remember which one was which. There were 3 other guys. It was a 4-piece at that time. It was myself, my friend Steven, Michael, and Ryan. And 3 of us sat in the back, just kind of trying not to get crushed by, the drum set and the amps and shit. Anyway, we get there, and it turns out that this place is this tiny little rundown market thing. Looks like it was built with adobe bricks back in the 40s or some shit in the middle of South Central. And, we unpack everything and we place everything in the venue, quote unquote. And there's a big puddle right in front of the non-existent stage. And there's like the promoter guy and one other friend of his. And, we kind of set up and practiced a little bit, because nobody was there. We assumed, this is LA, right? More people are going to show up. We played to like 5 people. Just a few other people showed up in time to catch us play. We played for like half an hour. Then we were far. It was a school night. I think, it wasn't a school night. It was the day before New Year's. The 31st. No. It was the 30th. Yeah, it was the day before New Year's. And we just packed everything up and just left. We were like, yeah, we played a great show. Not that many people showed up, but it was something, I guess. And, that's probably a runner-up. Yeah, that one was pretty bad. I guess another runner-up would be a show that we played in Dubuque, Iowa, on the tour, in 2017. And that one was bad, not because we played bad, or the sound was bad, or anything like that. There was one person that showed up. I mean, it's Dubuque, it was a pretty tiny little industrial kind of town, nothing against them. It was a decent town and everything. But, it was only really put there because it was kind of a big gap between that and the next place. Actually, to make it kind of put in perspective, it was right after the best show that we ever played, in my opinion, in Madison. So, there's always, you gotta have the humbler, right? Something. Anyway, there were a few other topics, but I feel like this is kind of running a little bit long. So I think I'm going to cut it off here for this week, and I'll get to the other ones, next week. So, thank you to anybody that listened all the way through, and I'll catch you guys, on the next podcast. And yeah, thank you guys. Take care.